Being low maintenance is often treated like a virtue. You don't ask for much, you adapt quickly, and you handle things on your own. You make situations easier for others simply by not needing anything from them. Over time, that ease becomes part of how you're perceived. People stop checking in. Support becomes optional, and the quiet emotional work you're doing to stay flexible, agreeable, and undemanding goes largely unseen. Being low maintenance creates a subtle contradiction. You're appreciated for making things easier, but rarely supported in return. The more adaptable you become, the less space others feel obligated to make for you. What begins as consideration slowly turns into expectation. There's also an unspoken risk in breaking the pattern. If you suddenly need something, it feels out of character. Requests are met with surprise, hesitation, or quiet resistance. You sense that your value has become tied to your ability to remain undemanding, to absorb discomfort without naming it. This tension builds because low maintenance behavior often hides effort. Others see smoothness, not the internal work it takes to maintain it. And when that effort goes unrecognized, the emotional cost accumulates quietly. Think of the relationship, at work, in family, or in friendships, where you're known as easy. Plans change at the last minute and you adjust. Needs arise and you accommodate. If something doesn't work for you, you tell yourself it's not worth bringing up. You don't want to be difficult. Over time, the pattern becomes clear. Your flexibility is no longer met with appreciation, it's assumed. Others feel free to prioritize their needs because they trust you'll manage yours quietly. And when you finally hesitate or express a limit, it lands awkwardly, as if you've broken an unspoken agreement. The moment stays with you, realizing that low maintenance didn't create balance, it created invisibility. The shift begins when you realize that being low maintenance isn't the same as being self sufficient. One is a pattern of minimizing needs, the other is a capacity to care for yourself without erasing yourself. When low maintenance becomes your default identity, it stops being a choice and starts functioning as a rule you're expected to follow. This reframing matters because it separates kindness from self neglect. Your adaptability doesn't obligate you to absorb imbalance indefinitely. Being easy to be around should not require you to be difficult to yourself. Seeing this clearly allows you to question the role you've been playing, not to abandon consideration for others, but to recognize where consideration has only been moving in one direction. Navigating the emotional cost of being low maintenance doesn't require a sudden shift into confrontation or self assertion. It begins with small, deliberate moments of honesty. Instead of automatically adapting, pause long enough to check whether something actually works for you. When it doesn't, name it simply, not as a demand and not as an apology, just as information. That doesn't work for me, or I need more notice next time, is enough. These statements don't dramatize your needs, they normalize them. Over time, this quiet clarity retrains expectations. You're no longer defined by how little you ask for, but how accurately you communicate. And that shift protects your energy without turning you into someone you don't recognize. Modern culture often praises flexibility without examining who pays for it. Being low maintenance is framed as maturity, emotional intelligence, or strength, while the quieter costs remain invisible. Systems and relationships benefit from people who self regulate without complaint, especially when that regulation keeps things running smoothly. But when ease becomes the standard, care becomes optional. The burden shifts towards those who are least likely to disrupt the flow, reinforcing patterns where emotional labor is unevenly distributed. Over time, this creates environments that function well on the surface while quietly exhausting the people that hold them together. Understanding this pattern reframes low maintenance behavior not as a personal flaw or virtue, but as a social dynamic, one that deserves awareness, boundaries, and recalibration. Being low maintenance doesn't mean you lack needs. It means you've learned how to minimize them for the sake of ease. Awareness gives you the option to stay considerate without disappearing, and to participate in relationships that don't rely on your silence to function. If this resonates, we explore these patterns further across our work on navigating modern social spaces with clarity and dignity.